Stardate 97739.04. This is Star Trek Discovery Pod, the #1 podcast about Borg cortical nodes and prop eye patches and feather boas and wigs and elf ears, apparently.
Ever.
Good. Ooh, we get
My
a
name
reprise.
is Mike Moody, and the one minor Star Trek character I would love to see killed off on a future episode of Picard is Alexander Roshenko, son of Worf, he who hath brought shame upon his house.
What's wrong with Alexander?
Okay. I mean, go back and watch those episodes and you'll find out.
I'm Clyde Haynes, and the one minor character on Star Trek that I would kill off would have to be Barclay.
Oh, no.
The dog?
Yes, not the dog.
Barclay's so funny.
Yeah, no. I mean, I loved him on the A-Team, Mad Murdoch. But,
Barclay's the
not-
guy
not so
who
much.
jerks off on the holodeck all the time.
Oh.
Okay, that's one
That's
interpretation of his
one
behavior.
way.
Yeah, I mean,
Who's not Geordie.
solid.
Jordy also. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they do it together?
Not usually, no.
Okay.
Who's the cleanup crew in the holodeck?
Underpaid people.
Yeah.
Very,
That's what Lower Decks is about.
very
That
underpaid
is
people.
so awful.
And I'm Mariah Gossett, also known as French-Canadian Jean-Luc Picard. And the...
You don't have an accent?
the accent. I can't do it. It's going to be offensive.
Oh, for the
I took so many years of French and none of it stuck.
for the audio listeners, we're kind of in costume today. Go.
Yes,
You
I have
you
a
should be watching.
full eye patch, fancy striped shirt, and a beret. And the minor Trek character I would kill off is Q Jr., who was just so annoying his entire run on Voyager,
I
and
think
thought he could
that's-
make up for it with a room full of roses.
That's the
No.
best pick so far, I think.
No.
Yeah.
And my name is Rios, and I wear some sexy threads.
Don't sing any more, or else we're going to pay for that
Wow.
song.
Fair enough.
I don't know what to do with that.
I'm Grant Davis, and I'm dressed as Rios. And the minor character I'd kill off. Can I kill off the elf kid with the sword? Is he a minor character?
No.
I don't
He's
think
a major
minor.
character in Picard.
We see. He had like 2 lines.
He's
this
sitting
episode,
right
right?
across
I'm right
from you.
here. What,
He's
if
We're
right
dressed
there.
up as them.
you know,
Can I kill you?
No. You know Discovery. Is there a minor character in Discovery that you kill off?
Oh, there you go.
What about that little the girl who disappears in the feral child girl?
The Queen.
Yeah,
The
the
queen.
queen
Yeah, yeah.
alien girl.
Poe, right?
Poe.
Poe.
Right.
Oh, Poe is so cool, though.
like
I mean,
Poe.
you're gonna kill off Poe, and then later on they kill off Daj's boyfriend, who's also from that.
I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
exterminating a race
A
of
whole
people.
race.
of
Yep.
people,
Yeah.
a
It's
whole
kind of
planet
awful.
people.
All right, fair
Okay,
point.
But Poe qualifies as a minor character.
Yep.
All right, let's jump into it. By the way, I'm dressed as 7 of 9.
Yes.
That's great.
Slash Daenerys. I mean, whichever.
Daenerys with a Borg cortical node on her eye. Tonight we're breaking down episode 5 of Picard, Stardust City Rag, a.k.a. Rios fucking rules, and so does 7 of 9.
Oh,
that's
that's out of
us.
the table.
This
It's a little
episode,
weird over there.
It's all right. We've got American Werewolf in Paris on this side. Y'all
this
are
is a
missing
little
out.
weird. Have you looked in the mirror,
I
friend?
know. No, I exactly know how weird we are over here.
This episode was written by Kristen Beyer, who needs to write more episodes
I agree.
of the show. Oh, sorry, Grant.
I hate you.
And it was
The actual notes aren't even on this.
No. And so, as loyal listeners of the podcast know, Grant never looks at our rundown, so I sent him a special one
Ever.
just to see if
Oh.
he would
Actually, open it.
actually open it up.
God.
Okay.
Fell for that one.
It's in the other
Yeah,
Slack
I'll
group.
find it.
All right. We're off the rails already. Who knew?
All right, who directed this episode? Mike?
Wigs
Jonathan
are
Frakes.
off.
There we go.
Old number 1. This is his number 2 episode of Picard.
I like
Okay.
Frakes.
Indeed.
Before we dive into this 5th episode of Picard, I want to remind everybody, please subscribe to our podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. Seriously, we need those subscriptions. We need those reviews. Just give us those 5-star reviews.
And if you guys have already gone ahead and done the 5-star review, there's another thing you can do. Tell your friends to check out the show. That's your homework assignment. Go and inform your friends. Be like, hey, this is a amazing Star Trek all-encompassing podcast. They really know their stuff about Enterprise. They love it so much. They're always talking about that show.
It's been a long road.
That's really
I cannot even joke about anyone thinking for 1 second that I like that horrible show.
Let's move on. We're angering people.
Dang.
There's 3 people who like that show, and they're not going to watch our show anymore.
Hey, if they have a problem with me, you can. I'm available on Twitter at Baron Von Grant. Just send your hate mail that
All
way.
there.
This is accurate. Also, go ahead and follow him. Another way you guys can help us out, of course, is to go to patreon.com/Star Trek Pod. Go there and make a per episode pledge. If you guys please just give us $2 an episode, then you can join us over on the Slack channel. You get to see the behind the scenes pictures of me dressing all sexy like this and whatever other shenanigans are going on there. And I think we're going to have a pretty special Patreon episode.
Very
this week.
special. Very special episode.
Let's just.
On a very special episode.
It's going to be well worth your money. I'm going to just leave it at that. So go ahead and subscribe. Go check it out.
Patreon.com/Star Trek Pod.
Thank you.
Do it. Also, if you are listening to the audio only version of this podcast and you are not getting to see us in our costume glory, you could be doing that. We live stream 9 p.m. Central Time. We all get together in costume or not in costume, and you can interact with us. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch us live or the replay after. If you're like, ooh, I'm listening to this in the car, but maybe I'll tune in when I get home and watch them so I can see all the ridiculous costumes and all our cool figurines that we have here in the studio. It's well worth it. So you can subscribe on YouTube, hit that bell, and it'll notify you when we go live.
All right, and I just want to let you all know that if you are watching us live, that we want to encourage you to actually participate. If you've got a question, you want to comment, if you have a question you want us to answer on the show live, then just make sure that you put in pod, capital P, capital O, capital D, and we'll make sure that we can kind of see those. But by all means, if you're watching us, be a part of the show.
Right. And they should definitely go ahead and, I mean, we're probably going to check out most of those comments near the end of our episode.
Yep.
But talk with everyone else while you're here.
Chit chat.
And that's whether you're
Decide who has
Twitter
the best
or
costume.
wherever you're watching. And if you're watching, if you want to see how long I wear this costume, I'd make sure you catch the first
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Place your bets on how long we're going to keep these wigs and eye patches and shit on. Mariah already took her eye patch off.
I couldn't see. I need to read the show rundown.
Tell it to someone who actually has to wear an eye patch.
I'm sure it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So, episode 5 of Picard, Stardust City Rags. Who's got some hot takes?
Hot takes.
Yeah.
Nice not having the earphones on when he does that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's
it's
going
good.
first with their hot take on this episode?
I mean,
Mariah.
I
Picard. go
kind
ahead.
of, yeah, obviously I go first. Très bien. It was great. I consider this a bottle episode just because I know it's technically a different planet and there's some stuff on the ship, but it was so contained and we were really only following like the A plot line. You know, we didn't go back to the Borg cube at all. We really stayed on to the crew. And it just felt like to me like an Ocean's movie meets like Blade Runner meets Star Trek meets costumes, and it was great. So I really enjoyed the whole episode. I thought the costume design was great. I have some notes on that for later, just talking about some of the production design that went into this particular episode and the creature design, which is always something I'm super into. I also thought all of the acting was really compelling, and there are some really great moments between 7 of 9 and Picard, something that really kind of, I think, helps solidify that idea that he knows he's being a bit of a jerk and he's working on it every day.
Well, if someone would just let him know that he's
Right.
being a jerk.
Every episode, every 15 minutes per episode?
Yeah,
maybe?
exactly.
Yeah,
That might help.
it might help. Yeah, that's my hot take.
Oh, go ahead, Bo.
I was going to say, I like the fact that you think of this like an Ocean's kind of movie, because I too thought this was like the Freecloud job. Like
Yeah.
it was kind of, it's a heist.
Even the way it was like written, right? So it was like we would get part of the plan and then we'd see the plan happening, and then part of the plan and then see it happening. And
And
that's
there was-
very much how heisty movies
And
are
there's always
usually.
like a twist and something unexpected at the end. So no,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
You got your hot take, Clyde?
Yeah, so my hot take was I also liked this episode quite a bit. I thought it was fun. I thought the pacing was good. Like it kept moving. We got a little bit of background on kind of what's been going on since in the break. I think it's more of when we think about the Federation and especially the human race that we all thought we knew. This is more like, wow, that doesn't exist. So this utopia that we were all looking for is very different. This is much more of a dystopian kind of aftermath of what happened. So I think the world building that has started to take place is starting to become kind of more and more three-dimensional. If I had to pick a nit, my biggest nit would be, I feel like the best people in the crew are being left off the crew. Like, we've talked about how much we all think that Laris would be a great member of the crew. I was hoping that 7 of 9 might be with us a little bit longer. And instead, we get Dr. Girardi, who's kind of a psychopath. So I'm just, in my head, I'm building up this ultimate crew that would have been great for Picard. And he definitely would have, that's the crew you want to take to the artifact. And we're kind of left with some people who I'm like, I'm not sure. But they're growing on me. I'm glad that we got to see more of Rafi's background, too. Like, it's starting to make a little bit more sense why she is the way she is.
I bet that's not the only nit you pick in this episode.
Well.
We'll get there. I'll go.
You go for it.
I love this episode. I'm with you guys. It was fast paced. It was streamlined. It was fun. It was like direct. It was kind of dumb, but not like Greg Berlanti CW dumb, which I love that. Not all the jokes worked, but the cast was clearly having a blast, which kind of helped gloss over some of the gags that didn't work. You know what I mean? Jerry Ryan's return was fucking awesome. I love seeing 7 of 9. Very cool, very believable, hard edge version of 7 of 9, 15 years post Voyager. She's a rogue revenge killer with a wounded heart. I love it. And besides all the goofy stuff, like you were saying, the world building was really good. I think this is the first time we got this is the deepest look at the post Nemesis Star Trek world that we've gotten so far in terms of the series. And what we're, like you said, what we're not seeing is the idealized Gene Roddenberry future of TNG, even of
he would
DS9.
not like this.
No, he would not like this. That Star Trek future we grew up with in the 80s and 90s has kind of grown dim, which is interesting. And all the people have grown really cynical, apparently. But there's still hope. And that hope
Lives in Picard.
lives inside Picard's heart.
I think what's really interesting about that is before this show, we still held on to this utopian image. And so when we watch something like Discovery, we're watching.
I'm sorry, you look hilarious.
I know. But when we watch Discovery, we're saying, well, yes, we know they struggled now, but eventually they're going to work it all out. Where now, I think we look back and go, well, I have no idea what the hell's going to happen to them because they're a long way from working it out.
Yeah.
And so it changes everything. I mean, we've changed the timeline pretty significantly here.
Yeah, but even though some fans might kind of be put off by that, I think it's a really interesting place to be for Star Trek. There's a lot to explore, and we need conflict in this series. So,
and I think what we're talking about, and Mariah, I think you always say this, it represents where we are today. Right. I think that Roddenberry view was great for the 80s and 90s. I know you guys are. It's the ears. I can't even take you seriously.
So good.
You can't even take me seriously. But I do
it's
think
with the glasses and everything and the sweater dust.
It does.
Clyde's
represent-
Elnor, by the way.
Yeah, no, I am Elnor. I think it does represent kind of what we see today and kind of our outlook today.
Yeah, in that sense, it is kind of holding up the Roddenberry vision of social commentary in Star Trek. Sorry, cut you off.
Oh, my hot take. This was fun. It was, again, fun. A fun episode where they have an adventure. It like you're saying, Mariah, it was a bottle episode in a way. Esque.
It just felt that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that, we have this team assembled. We have the Lord of the Rings Fellowship has been assembled. I'm getting the sense of how their dynamic works together. And I think that the writers are having fun playing certain characters off of each other and bouncing back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's starting to feel like a ragtag team that I want to follow on some of these silly adventures that they go on. Or when things get serious, like in that cold open, they can be absolutely brutal.
Oh, I loved that cold
And
open.
I watched that with
Yeah.
my 4-year-old and went,
Ruh-roh.
close your eyes. And she's like, who are you talking to? I was like, to myself, close your eyes. I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, Jeannie, my wife, had to look away. I was like, give me more.
It was intense.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just the tone of the show can really surprise me with how quickly it can just show that in the beginning and then turn on a dime and suddenly everyone's wearing hokey outfits like us right now.
Yes.
And we're just on board for whatever kind of zany mission they were on.
You mean you guys didn't murder some Borgs out there before you came into the studio?
No,
That
I
wasn't.
didn't.
Those weren't Borgs. Those are our neighbors.
What? Oh no.
They were loud. This is a studio.
I told them to be quiet.
Anyway, overall, really enjoyed it. Some of the people's comments here on the thread. JC said, yeah, there was no Borg cube, so enjoyed the
Yeah.
episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
No fuck boys.
It was so streamlined.
Yeah, it was.
Carolyn said Picard's French accent was better than his actual French in episode 1,
Oui, oui.
which is funny. And Chris Rogers says Picard as a French pimp is him embracing himself being a jerk.
Yeah, let's dive deeper into this episode.
Sure.
I mentioned I really enjoyed the characterization of 7 of 9 in this episode. She's kind of battle weary. She's really cynical. She's-
Chugging some bourbon.
yeah, she's chugging the bourbon. She's rough around the edges. She's still a little Borgy in the way, like in how direct she is. Still hot.
And she kills someone.
She murders somebody. She is helping the helpless, which I like
It was a mercy
as a ranger because that's what Voyager taught her.
It's
But
Go ahead.
she's getting to a dark place. So what do you guys think of her, knowing her from Voyager?
I mean, I thought it was an accurate portrayal of what I think she would be in 14, 15 years, and I think you could really see the emotion, especially in that blood open. I can't even call it a cold open, the blood open. Those were her kids. Those were the Borgs that they kind of brought onto Voyager towards the end of the series, and she was sort of stewarding them through their de-Borgification. There's a really great episode where it's like planned activities to be more human. I can't remember the name of the episode, but I'll try to tweet it out later. She was really bonded with those people, and so I think you can really feel her emotion when she has to do that mercy killing and sort of amping up the emotional turmoil, I can speak tonight, that she was feeling when she saw her nemesis later.
All right, I'm going to do something that I know Mike hates, and that's reference a completely random show. So occasionally I am, I don't know, tricked into watching one of these love something shows where people are brought onto an island hotel or villa, whatever it is, and then they're supposed to pair up. Tricked. Just that is my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Like we tricked you into dressing up like
Yes.
this tonight.
Yes.
So, well, the thing about those shows that they always kind of reference is that when you're together, you're not in the real world, and you act one way. And then the question is, will you survive once you go back into the real world? Well, it makes me think that when I look at what we've seen in Star Trek, is that when they're on these ships with these captains, like a Janeway, that it's not the real world, right?
It's an idealized
It's
world.
an idealized world where as long as they're together and they stay together and that they can do anything. And what we're seeing is this is 7 of 9 out on her own without a Janeway, without a Chakotay, right? She's and left to her own devices, this is who she becomes. And so it's very different, but I did like it.
Existing outside her liberal bubble that she used to live in on the Voyager.
Yeah, well, she's become judge, jury, and executioner.
Literally,
She
yeah.
doesn't have to answer to anyone else at this point, and she's having to come up with her own moral code. And like she sort of expresses to Picard at the end, she's trying to figure out if that moral code is based in humanity or if it's based on her collective.
Grant, I know you. This may be your first introduction to Seven of Nine, and Jerry Ryan.
Yeah, I think she's great. I don't know.
The cigar lights up.
Does it really?
Really?
Yes.
It does.
I think it's just got a little reflecting.
Reflective.
Oh,
You
yeah.
hit the light. I was like,
Reflective
whoa.
No, I don't really know how else to have imagined her. I just maybe she's a little bit more robotic in the show.
Yeah,
Is that right?
for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, she
Less
just seemed kind
bodysuits.
of grizzled
What?
badass, and I think one of my favorite scenes was at the very end when she's like, "Oh, I have a ship coming to pick me up, beam me over to it,"
Mhm.
and instead she just beams herself right back down and just
Mhm.
starts like killing them. I was like, "Fuck yes, kill those people! They were torturing, murderous people," and I don't know if you guys have bought into Picard's idealism, but the bloodlust in me was like, no, those people need justice, and she's the only true righteous person to bring it to them. And that's why in Civil War, I was Team Cap. I'm like,
Right, yeah.
like Captain American, he's going to make the right call. I trust Cap. I don't need oversight. I don't need Picard going, no, we're going to have a justice system.
Well, I like the, like you guys were saying, I like the interplay between Seven and Picard. They started off kind of as adversaries, like everybody does on the Picard show. Oh, you're Picard. Fuck you. I hate you. You're a privileged fuck. It happens in every episode so far, pretty much. But they kind of they found a respect for each other. And one of my favorite moments was when Seven asked Picard if, after being brought back from the Borg Collective, he feels that he's regained all his humanity. And he says, no, but we're both working on it, aren't we? And she says, every damn day of my life. I thought that was a really wonderful scene, like seeing these two relate to each other. And it reminds us that, oh, yeah, even though Picard was only a Borg for like a week, he was still a Borg. And that really influences everything he does and the way people see him.
Well, he killed a lot of people in that week.
Right.
You say about
Yeah.
bloodlust.
And you
Yeah.
could see the way, like, when they remind Rios that he was, like, that Picard was a Borg at one point. He was like, oh, it's like he, like, blocked that out of his memory of, like, oh, I can't remember. Sort of like how fans like to not remember the bad things
Mm-hmm.
of characters. The one other thing I really have to say is give me the Laris and Seven murder show that
Yeah.
I need. I just want
blasting people.
just them blasting people.
I mean, I need both of them in part of like some futuristic, like Section 31.
Well,
There's
I kinda-
hit people.
I kind of hoped that this was a pilot, like a backdoor pilot for
Oh,
the
so
Fenris
good.
Ranger show with Seven of Nine.
Oh hell yeah! I'd
Get
watch
Laris
that.
on there too.
Yes,
Yeah, we
I'm
need
in.
more Trek shows all the time.
obviously.
I am with it.
So that we
No
can be
sleep.
trekking and
Every
podcasting
day.
every day.
What costume will we have next week? Tune in.
I mean, I'm just a little disappointed that Mike over here wasn't in like the skin tight Voyager.
She wasn't wearing
Always.
that.
Oh,
I
that
know.
that
I am
was
always
the
disappointed he's not.
Sorry.
that
No.
was the comment I made earlier. Was like just no bodysuits.
No, you know what? But I think that's the thing. I like the fact that there was no bodysuits.
Yeah,
Because I think that the 7 of 9 Jerry Ryan bodysuit was a little bit distracting on Voyager.
Mm.
Whereas now I felt like we really got to see the depth of character without being distracted by that. It's kind of like the Marina Sirtis low cut like uniform where everybody else is wearing something different.
Right.
however, we did get a bodysuit
We did.
on
Bejazzle.
Bejazz-
Jazzle,
The Jazzle, right? Come on, guys.
Bejazel.
Bajay.
Jay.
I thought they said Jade.
So I think
But then I
7 of
looked up how to
9
spell
called
it,
her
and I was-
Jay.
J.
But-
Okay.
Right, which was-
Bejazel.
makes sense.
I call her Gozer the Destroyer from Ghostbusters. In
I mean,
that
very
In
much
that
that
onesie.
vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's the same character.
But man,
That actor, Nakar Zadagan, she
Zadagan,
kind of
yeah.
looked like Marina Sirtis.
She looked a lot like Marina.
It had me
Sirtis, yeah.
confused for a minute. It's like, is that Marina Sirtis?
Do you think they were doing that intentionally? I thought like maybe
No.
it was supposed to be her, like a mirror version of her that
I don't
existed.
think
No,
so.
this actor is clearly just like a CBS stock player, like half the other actors on the show.
I will say though, I loved her in Discovery Now. It's that documentary now, not Discovery.
Discovery Now.
Documentary Now. She,
Shaboom!
she was in a spoof they did of that like cult documentary. Anyway, it's very funny, and she's very funny in it.
Discovery Now, though, that's gonna be the next spin-off.
Discovery Now.
So
We
we-
can get a couple points on that.
We talked a little bit about that violent, gory opening flashback sequence. I loved it. I thought it really pulled me in. On the internet, we're seeing different reactions. People really liked it. When people found out it was Icheb, it made them sad.
Was Icheb like a pretty known character?
Icheb was a minor character in the last few seasons of Voyager.
Mhm.
But
You-
known
Had a pretty
enough.
extensive
Yeah.
run. Yeah.
He is.
Are you gonna find a picture for me?
There he
There
is.
he is.
There's Icheb.
Little baby Egypt.
He was
Oh.
a teenage guy who was deborgified by the Voyager a few years after they deborgified Seven of Nine, and it was a whole class of kids they found who they disconnected from the Borg collective and kind of
Gifted
taught to be
youngsters,
human.
perhaps. Yeah.
He was pretty. He was kind of the Wesley Crusher of Voyager
Yeah.
for a while.
Oh, does that mean everyone hated him?
Well, not everybody.
No,
No.
I didn't mind
Don't
him.
look at me.
I do now. Looking at this picture, so for folks who are listening, it's an OG picture from Voyager, and I think they've done an interesting job of taking Seven of Nine from this like tight, like high and tight character, right? Like her hair is up in this bun, she's in these bodysuits, and now her hair's down. She drinks bourbon, she wears the leather jacket, like she's lived some life, and she's just like leaving that like structure and like boundaries behind.
They've also gotten a lot better in the makeup department because
Oh,
looking at the
100%.
silly putty on his nose versus in the show where I was
Oh,
like,
the
that
lizard
looks
guy?
really good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the lizard guy too.
Lizard guy is dope.
My painted on cortical node looks better than his. Yeah, it is interesting. I'm seeing a lot of fan reaction online that the original actor who played Icheb wasn't brought back to portray him on the show. Not a huge deal for me.
They
No.
replace people all the time
Yeah,
on track.
Not a deal breaker.
yeah. I did like that it was Icheb who passed away because she means a lot to Seven of Nine,
Mm-hmm.
and that death. I mean, she kills him.
Yeah.
She has to kill him because he's dying. He's so tortured. That death really just sets up her headspace and her heart space where she's at, where we meet her. What, like 10 years later?
13 years later.
13 years later in this episode. So it makes sense that she is where she's at, and she does what she does at the end.
So in the timeline of events, they're trying to show that happens 1 year after the synthetics on Mars
Mm-hmm.
destroyed it, and synthetics have been outlawed. So this is synthetics themselves are eradicated, but it seems like Borgs are also like on the periphery being targeted because they're kind of
These are former Borgs.
they're
Yeah.
like half
Yeah.
in, half out of what would be kind of considered like a synthetic. Am I right in that?
I don't know. I'm wondering if it's going to lead to like a larger part of the plot, this whole like collecting of Borg parts to like something evil is happening and somehow Bejazzle is involved.
They're gonna Frankenstein like a
Yeah,
full
maybe a-
Borg monster.
or bringing like one of the Queen Mother things back. Maybe they're
Borg Queen.
Yeah, Borg
Mhm.
Queen, and like getting these things together. Because they had like all of those larger pieces like hanging when they did like the long pan shot. So I think there's something sinister going on, and
that
we don't know all the
Are
pieces.
we
Borg
in your
murder
theory
room.
corner already?
I don't think we've
No,
hit Theory
not
Corner
yet.
yet, but
But yeah, we are seeing a lot of discrimination of people who used to be Borg on this show or references to it. And here we're seeing outright targeting and murder of those people. Even though somebody like Icheb, who we saw,
was in a Federation uniform.
was in a Federation uniform, had become Starfleet, was disconnected from the collective over a decade ago. He was still targeted and seen as an other and basically ripped apart for the technology that lives inside of him.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, to that point, Mike, 7 of 9 was a Fenris Ranger. And where she wasn't was actually on a starship, right, in uniform, working for the Federation, working for Starfleet in particular. So it speaks to, well, what happened to these, these kind of freed Borg who were serving as officers on ships? What happened to them when they got back from the Delta Quadrant? And what happened in the band? Where were they left? Or were they left without kind of a home?
Well, with Icheb, he was in like the future version of the Starfleet uniform, so he definitely joined Starfleet when he got back.
Mhm.
But like I said, even though he was accepted in Starfleet or accepted into the Federation, he was still targeted and fucked with
Yeah.
because he was former Borg,
Yeah.
which is something we wouldn't really see in 90s, 80s Star Trek, but now we're seeing this kind of darker dystopian world.
I was a little confused on like the series of events that led to Eachum's like capture, and so luckily Keith Phillips, who does the recaps for Vulture, I'm always very thankful. Keith writes great recaps, and they help me find correct spellings of character names.
Yeah.
But they sort of wrote about how apparently like Vajazzle like sent out a signal, like an emergency signal to bring Eachum's ship in. And it was a trap.
Yep.
And so it was like Vajazzle
okay.
knew there was a Borg on that ship and wanted that particular Borg.
And she knew it because of her relationship with Seven of Nine.
Right.
That's
Right.
how
That's
this
right.
whole thing came
Yeah.
about. Yeah, because they were patrolling and helping the helpless. They set an ambush, particularly for Eachin, because Seven of Nine gave them that information
So
unknowingly.
she was both in a relationship with Seven of Nine and targeting people like Seven of Nine.
It was definitely coded that she was in a relationship with
I
her. We
think
didn't.
so.
It wasn't on the surface.
That looked like a lover's quarrel to me.
Yeah.
That hurt and that pain was more than just like the betrayal of a homie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, for sure. So as our crew approached Fucktown, aka Freecloud, everyone got personalized pop-up ads
Oh,
on the ship
yeah.
except for Legolas.
Except for me.
Except for
Except
Legolas.
for Elnor. Where's mine? One of his 3 lines of the episode.
well,
I
let's
didn't
do this
get
right.
one.
What would be your Freecloud pop-up ad?
I don't know. I mean, for Elnor, I would say maybe a
Sword
library.
museum. A sword museum.
Yeah, no, you know, what, but it probably would have been like arms, right? Like
Arms?
not
Arms
arms in
dealer.
like arms,
Just
like
sever
weapons,
arms?
Sock 'em.
like guns, swords,
Oh.
grenades, like all kinds of stuff. It's like come and get your arm from the armory. I think
For him.
for him, I think
I
that
was
would be.
I was
his,
gonna say for him just like a beige wall.
Aw.
He's so
Do you-
boring.
Do you think that maybe he was? No, I guess he's not underage.
Well, the other thing is he's probably never seen any of this stuff before, right?
He
like,
has not
has
been
he
off this
ever
planet.
left
Well,
his planet?
He ain't seen no titties.
We actually don't know because we know that he is a warrior, so he may have been hired out before for a lost cause. We don't get the sense that this is his first lost cause, right?
I don't know. It might be his first lost cause.
Oh wow.
Well, I really like the I don't know if it's social commentary. It's more of a joke of the targeted Facebook ad.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
they
know,
were
like
great.
it reads your mind, like it knew that Rafi like smokes weed.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Like, come.
and then it knows that Girardi is somebody who likes to engage in punching
Violence. It's gonna
Yeah.
kill some people.
Once again, she's a liar, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so meek. I don't know how to punch," and then nails the punch on the first go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pops the head right off.
And I kind of like the flirtatious relationship she's got going on with Rios, where like she seems to be kind of flirting with him, and I'm not sure if he's like feeling it back, but I don't know. I'm on
I
board
feel
with
like
that.
he's just like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah,
Boop, boop,
whatever.
boop, tap
I
on the
feel
head.
like Rios is the one character who really understands what exactly is happening, and is just kind of chill, like I'm going along for the ride.
I love that line where he's just like, Romulan space is extra. Like,
I love that he's so game for everything, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, like when we first met him, he puts on this like really like tough exterior, like don't fuck with me. But they're like, hey, you want to dress like this and go down to Fucktown and pretend you're a pimp? Yeah, let's do that.
oh,
Hey.
you're gonna give me beta blockers? Great.
Yeah. Hey, you wanna go to Romulan space? Maybe get killed.
As long as there's 2 umbrellas in that bitch.
That was the ultimate pimp move.
Yeah, I mean,
Two
Patrick Stewart
umbrellas.
was acting with a capital A here, pretending to be a Frenchman. But
oh, we big.
I think I think Rios was my MVP,
It was
Yeah.
actually
absolutely.
exciting seeing,
other than Seven.
seeing Picard like up, or at least seeing Patrick Stewart like having fun
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
role.
They were
rather than
all
just
having a
being, like,
blast.
Grizzled and tired, and I'm on my death march. This is my last mission ever.
Instead,
That's
he's
kind of
like,
how he's been,
oh,
right?
I have something for you,
Yeah.
madame.
Because like one of the shows that Patrick Stewart did right before this was that short-lived Blunt Talk. I don't know if you guys
man.
remember that.
Yeah.
that was
It was not a great show, but
terrible. I
he
mean,
was
I hate to say
hamming it
that.
up in it,
He was.
and he had a bunch of energy, vibrance to him, and like this is a Picard who's just drained of life and vitality. It seems, at least in the first few episodes, and it was refreshing to see. Oh, he can be cheeky, he can have fun, and there's more energy to the guy than initially what we were seeing.
It's interesting that he, besides that like one big flamboyant scene, he kind of took a back seat in this episode. I think most of the action was around Seven of Nine and her story, and maybe that's telling. I really think he's not going to be around for season 2.
Well, I'm actually probably getting to the point where I'm getting very okay with that, because I think what I'm seeing is they've done a remarkable job of kind of tearing down our nostalgia and our expectations. And I mean, listen,
In a way, that doesn't sound great.
I was completely
been beat down.
against this in the beginning, but what I realize is we've all been asking for this Trek that we've known. But then when I think back, because I've been asking myself, what's working with Discovery that I'm missing here? And I remember the first season 1 of Discovery, we were kind of looking and going, I'm not so sure, except for Mike's, bromance with Lorca. We were kind of looking and going, I'm not sure, what are they doing? This is not what we know. But by season 2, we were like, this is amazing, and we've got all new characters, and everybody's got their own personality. I think that as we get further and further away from the cameos, from the characters we know, what we're doing is we're establishing a crew who will have their own personality, their own quirks, their own universe. And I think that might actually be really exciting.
Well, speaking of quirks, what about
My favorite line of the entire episode.
Wait, what line is
I
this?
have no idea.
uh,
So basically what happened was they needed backstory, right? They needed like this a reference.
Oh yeah.
And
to
the
be like,
reference,
of course we are evil people.
right? And the reference that they were given was quirk of Ferengi.
Ferenginar.
Ferenginar.
The dude with the ears.
The
Yes.
big old ear guy, yeah.
Okay.
From
And
DS9.
so that, I was like, that is a great
Wait,
little Easter
I
egg.
heard the Ferenginar reference, but they mentioned Quark by name?
They
Yes.
mentioned Quark by name.
Fuck yes.
And I was like, that's the
That is
best
fucking
like,
great.
little Easter egg.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, are we gonna
Yeah.
get to see him? How many gold bars does he have?
Yes. Crest Latinum.
So we finally caught up to Bruce Maddox, the scientist who helped create Daj and Soji, and who we first met in the TNG episode Measure of a Man.
I feel like he had a rookie move drinking that drink.
Yeah, he did.
You did not see her pour
Not one sip.
herself a drink. As soon as she's like, have a whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. I was
Have
like,
some
dude,
poison.
Have some
I
poison.
mean, he's not the only one with a rookie move. I mean, they left Girardi in there by herself, watched. Like,
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
even like
Yeah.
she's a scientist. I mean, you should at least have the emergency medical hologram in there with her
With like an override code that she can't turn off.
that she can't just turn off.
But the hologram saw what she was doing. Does it not?
Twice,
Does it not
yes.
have a memory?
That's my thought.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't he just pop up to Rios and go?
She's killing him.
There must be some really heavy restrictions on these holograms now, where they don't have a. Their memory can be erased,
That
or they
doesn't
can't
make
just
sense.
they can't just hop everywhere
Well,
on the ship
I
and
guess
do what
she
they
turned
want.
him off before she actually killed him. Because
Right,
she was
but-
like, I got this. Get out of here.
Right, but
you know?
he saw that she was manipulating the
yes.
instruments
Mm.
to hurt him.
Well, here's what I'm kind of wondering there. Did we not see Bruce Maddox die in that
No.
first scene?
No,
Oh, he was just
no, they
like,
just
no.
knocked him out.
poisoned.
Is
Yep.
it not possible that he did die and then the Bruce Maddox that they had was a synthetic
No,
of him?
I
And
mean-
so
Mhm.
maybe she was like,
Have we
fine,
hit theory
you can...
corner?
theory corner.
No,
Think
I
you're out
think
there on
Like,
your
because
own,
what if
buddy.
like she's like, yeah, we'll trade Bruce Maddox, and they're putting a synthetic that maybe they can track and they have the information of.
I think story-wise with canon, it made sense to have Bruce Maddox as this character who's very connected to the creation of Data's daughters. But the show, story-wise, doesn't want to bring this character back in. They want to put all that kind of on Girardi and have her be the one who helped create Soji and Daj, like was mentioned here. So they just kind of had Bruce Maddox in one episode and got him out of the way.
Is she a synthetic then?
I think
Maybe.
so.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Is everyone a synthetic in
No,
this show?
I do think Girardi is synthetic, who doesn't know she's a synthetic, who has been kind of manipulated to believe that the ban on synthetics is the right thing.
Yeah.
And she feels guilty for her part in it, and that's why she killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And then toward the end of the season, where she's going to discover the truth about her own nature.
Now,
Theory corner.
Mm.
she killed him because
did
somehow
kill him.
she was shown a vision, likely the vision of Soji being the destroyer, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know exactly what Vulcan, like, ambassador or the colonel that met with
Oh,
him.
The
Colonel-
Commodore
Oh,
Cool with
Commodore-
the shades.
yes,
Yeah.
Commodore
Yeah.
O, right?
Commodore
Mhm.
Shades. We don't know exactly what Commodore Shades said to Girardi, but clearly it convinced her to push her way onto this expedition.
Yeah, Girardi
Mhm.
tells Maddox, "I wish you knew. I wish you knew what I knew. I wish I didn't know what I know. I wish they hadn't shown me. I'm so sorry." Then she kills him.
Yeah.
It seems like he knows too much, and sure, he knows how to track, but she also knows now the destination. She doesn't need Maddox alive,
Well, I
and
thought
now
that
she's
was,
on a mission to just try and kill Soji.
Yeah.
Or realize Soji's vision. Is it time?
It's
I had to
itchy,
take
yeah.
the eye
The
patch off.
wigs are coming off.
I might leave the ears on.
Okay.
Yeah, leave the ears on.
Yeah.
And with a baseball cap.
There we go.
There you go.
Perfect.
Cool.
Do we care about Rafi more now that we know she lost her family
I
because she was
actually-
way into Reddit conspiracy
Here
theories?
we go.
So I actually
I've been waiting for this moment. Will Clyde and Mariah agree?
So
here we go.
I do sympathize with her more. I also think it was an interesting take on specifically how a lot of large political movements, the burden of that is so predominantly on Black women and Black femmes in the community. And I think that she knows that she's not a crackpot. Like, she thoroughly believed in what she believed in, and she was trying to get stuff done, and no one was taking her seriously. And until a straight white dude takes it seriously, no one's going to take it seriously.
Even in
that's-
Star Trek.
Yeah, even in Star Trek. And so I think it's really talking about I'm hoping she gets a good redemption story. I thought her son's reaction was actually very believable as someone who deals with personal things that are similar to what she's dealt with. And so, I think his reaction was very believable. I think it's setting up an interesting backstory for us. And I'm glad she's still on the ship.
Well, I've got to agree with that wholeheartedly, or less have my black card taken from me. So, no, honestly, Mike, I have not been a Rafi fan from day one. This did make me care more. And it did make me go, all right, I'm rooting for her, for the truth to come out.
Yes.
So that she can be kind of,
Yeah.
I don't want to say validated, but
Vindicated.
vindicated for
Yeah.
sure. So that people can see, including her son, to go, like to Mariah's point, she's not a crackpot. She's been right the whole time, and everyone else has just been ignoring her.
Yeah, I want to see how what she thinks she knows, her theory, is going to dovetail into what Girardi knows, into what Maddox knew, and what the true secret of the synth ban is. I want to see exactly how her take works into all that and how she knows the information that she knows.
I don't know. I'm less on the Rafi train here. I thought that she's super manipulative here. I thought she was lying to her son, like, from the get-go. She's like, oh yeah, I've cleaned up my act. I'm like, you cleaned up your act like what, maybe 2 days ago?
Yeah.
You didn't really clean up your act. You came here under false pretenses. You lied. You didn't respect his boundaries. You didn't try to contact him before just kind of dropping in on him during what is actually a very private moment. He and his wife in a fertility clinic. I would think, like, no, that's not okay. And then rather than, like, listening to him and hearing what his complaints were, she lashed out and resorted once again to her conspiracy theories. Even though we might know that they're true, that doesn't validate that she throws that back in his face for the sins of her past of neglecting him.
Yeah, I'll make it
And I'm
clear.
like, I'm
She's-
not okay with what
She's
she did.
a pretty terrible mother and also very much a pretty realistic portrayal of an addict.
Yes, I was going to say a very realistic portrayal of an addict.
Fair.
However, he was the one who threw the theories in her face and is obviously still not over the fact that this cause took his mom away. And it's like this, what it becomes a conversation of, like, for a lot of working moms too, like, what is more important, your work or your family, and how can you have both, and, like, what does that look like? And then you add her addiction issues on top of that, and it becomes very complicated.
Well, here's what I really loved about this, and what I thought it highlighted, is that, again, when we think about the Star Trek that we love, when we think about all these characters that we've kind of grown to, there's a sense of duty that we've all responded to,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're out there on this ship, right? largely, a lot of times you've got ships without children, like the Enterprise being at sometimes something that's different. But even then, if you have children on the Enterprise, you've got someone who is focused on their job, they've got a duty shift, and then you've got another parent or something, like Kiko O'Brien, who's at home with the kids. What we get here is the duty, and that is so prevalent in these characters that we say we love, has a disastrous effect on their family that we've never seen before, right? And now we're looking in like, you've got this character who was running around with Picard, being his number one, and at home, everything was falling apart. And we get to see that. And I was like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's new.
That very duty that we've all been grown to, here's the other side of that coin.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that she was using when she went back into the ship and her door was locked?
Oh, smoking a little.
And
of
this is going to
weird
be an
flower.
ongoing, redemption story for an addict we're going to get with her, because I'm on board for that.
I don't know.
I think that's a good call.
I like it because I think the one thing that we haven't really seen in Star Trek before is an addict that doesn't get cleaned up and resolved in one episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Like, that's different.
So you guys are talking a lot about how this is a grittier take on Star Trek that
Way
confronts
grittier,
a
yeah.
lot more real issues that were probably danced around in a much more like idealized version in previous iterations of Star Trek. I guess what I'm kind of wondering is with the idea that Picard is going through this redemption arc, do you think that the reason they're introducing the whole Borg thing is to kind of explain that in a way he's lost his humanity, and that's why maybe the Borg affected a lot of his relationships with all those other people, and that's why he was distant from Rafi when she might have needed a good friend at that point, why he neglected like a lot of his duties, why he dropped the ball on the Romulans, because he lost that part of his humanity?
Maybe. And the more I think about it, Picard has always been portrayed as somewhat of a distant leader. He is a very, and we don't often think of him that way because he's positioned as a really inspirational leader.
One feather down.
And one cigar down, too. Because he's positioned as a really inspirational and aspirational figure. But one-on-one, remember in the Enterprise, he hated children. He had a problem being around children. And the final episode, it was a big deal when he joined the crew at the poker table because he never wanted to cross that bridge with them, but he did. So it makes sense that now that I think about it, it does make sense that he wouldn't have kept up with Rafi after this thing happened. And he would have very strained relationships with all the people we're seeing him meet up with again in this series. And every time he comes up and finds them and calls on them to help him, he gets a lot of shit for it. It makes sense.
Well, and even when we look at his relationships, he's interesting in the fact that he's got no real personal romantic relationships.
You forgot about Vash.
I've never forgotten about Vash, but that's like it. And even now, he's been out for 14 years and nothing, like no relationships, whatever. When we think about the other captains or the first officers, they always have these, or they start to have these rich relationships, right? You look at something we all know about Kirk, right? But you look at, even the relationships of like Cisco. You look at the relationships of like Archer. Like there's something there. And now, but with Picard, it was always very cut and dry. I think you're right, Mike. He's been distant to everyone. His only two friends, even remotely friends that we see, are Romulan refugees
Who work on his farm.
who technically he hires and are ex-Tau Shiar.
Right.
They're
Like,
paid to be his
They're
friends.
his paid bodyguard.
They're
Yeah.
paid bodyguard field hands.
I wonder
Like,
if it's
this is
similar
crazy.
to like there was a 6 Feet Under plot line that was all about a pop star who would essentially pay attractive bodyguards to like be around all the time because she never felt safe with anyone that wasn't like on her payroll. And so I wonder if it's like, he doesn't feel like he can actually have these intimate relationships, maybe because of the Borg issue, or maybe just because he was in charge of so many people for so long. The idea of getting too close to anyone would manipulate his ability to make clear and conscious decisions.
Yeah, I think that's true. And it also feels like he doesn't know how to be around people outside the context of the Starfleet that he knew.
Because even on this ship, on the Sirena, he's like kind of still commanding the ship, and Rio is just like, yeah, whatever you want,
Yeah.
it's fine, it's
You're
cute.
paying me.
Like, yeah.
Your check cleared, bro. It's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Just a random thing. I thought it was funny that they referred to that one bad guy as a sentient reptiloid. Like he doesn't even have a race.
His name is Mr. Vup.
Mr.
Well,
Vap.
yeah.
Mr. Vap.
I want to say, as we're talking about kind of Picard, if we look in the chat, Home Chicky mentioned like Beverly. I've not forgotten about Beverly.
Oh yeah.
But that's the thing that like never really happened.
It
Like,
never
we
happened.
always thought it was gonna happen,
No.
but it never happened.
He never crushed that crusher.
He never crushed the Crusher. And even when we think of like at the you know all things must come to an end, the final episode, it still didn't happen. Like,
Yeah.
even when we look in the future, it didn't happen. And so now here we are. We're 14 years out, and no mention of Beverly whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Mrs. Picard.
There's no Mrs. Picard. So even that, like, he's just a distant captain who I mean, I'm coming around.
He's Morrissey. He's just asexual,
I-
but maybe a little less of a dick.
I mean, based on Vosh, I wouldn't call him asexual, but I would say he has real trouble connecting with the world around him, and even more so now that world has changed.
Because he needs to be leading it. He needs to be elected president of the universe. President Picard. So, Mariah, earlier you were talking about this reptilian guy who can
Yeah.
like smell.
The,
he can-
the Koopa Troopa?
yeah, the Koopa Troopa who can apparently smell who you're fucking.
Oh,
So
man.
you like the makeup here.
I love it. Yeah. So it was Neville Page is again back as a creature designer. And then the special effects makeup artist was Vincent Van Dyke, who I think did a really great job. There's some cool like behind the scenes of them like fitting the mask, and Neville Page as a creature designer always really wants to make sure actors can actually emote and act in
Yeah.
their stuff.
Yeah, he does a
And
good
this
job.
is a full brand new like alien race for Star Trek. It's a brand new thing that's going into the canon, and so he was talking about the importance of when you're like designing brand new creatures for shows like this, because now this is what they are for Continuum.
They basically point out that he's not considered anything like on the same level as like a sentient being, though, didn't they?
Yeah, it's like a sentient reptilozoid or something.
Yeah, they seemed really condescending about it. and
right. He
then-
doesn't even have a race name.
Then there's the whole scene where Rios blasts him and kills him, and then they're like, "Hey guys, don't kill her, don't kill Vajazzle, because then we'll have heat on us." But what about heat on you because you killed him, or does that just not matter because he doesn't? He's
I mean, he's
he
like the
doesn't matter.
hired hand, you know. He's
They're
like,
supposed to die.
They made
Yeah.
it seem like he's like just a regular lizard that you put in water, like those little toys, and then they
and it
expand.
expands.
Like that's what he is.
but he was talking. He was negotiating deals. He's a
He
middleman.
knew
Yeah.
that he had smoked meat for breakfast.
Right. I smell bacon.
Also, I thought that line that Rios had about, oh yeah, they can tell what you ate or who you had sex with, or sometimes it's both. And I was
Yeah.
like, damn, this show is nasty.
Rios fucked.
He does.
So no artifact, no Soji, no Narek in this ep. Are we sorely disappointed?
Nope.
It's fine.
I mean,
I needed all of this to like move some stuff forward. I
Yeah.
feel like we are kind of stuck in a place on that cube until we get this crew there. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever we can do to push this crew to get to the Borg cube, like let's do it, because we're halfway through the season. And so we still got to get to the cube. We got to activate or deactivate. So whatever that is.
Whatever. Yeah.
And then,
Do you think we're actually going to get to the cube next episode?
Yeah.
I think we
are.
have 2 more episodes before we get
Oh
to the cube.
man.
I thought they showed the cube in the.
Well, they
oh.
showed it, but it's Picard on it.
Well, Picard, like,
thought
there's
so.
a scene where Picard says something about, like,
Oh, maybe.
we got to get to Soji. But maybe those him still on the ship. I don't remember.
I'm gonna say I
remember.
think we get there next week. I mean,
I
I
hope so.
need. I need some. We got to move this along a little bit.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Look, did I miss Soji? No. I miss Dodge because I thought Dodge was going to be kind of a killer part of this crew again. You got someone who's activated, who's a warrior. Like, I kind of dug Dodge. So she's still trying to figure out who she is.
Yeah.
And she's messing around with Narek. I'm like, I didn't miss it. But I'd love for us to kind of move the story along.
I'm really glad we got a whole episode with no weird incest.
Yeah. She's definitely back next week, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
Incest is still looking Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, did you miss it? Did you miss the incest part?
Yes.
But you had Vajazzle. I mean, Jay.
JJ.
Jay.
So
her costume was still dope.
Oh,
That
that was-
bodysuit, that
that was
coat.
definitely a wink and a nod to original 7 of 9
Yes.
costuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was
Or
great.
goes to the Gazarian, as Grant said. We kind of already did some theory talk. Before we dive into the live questions from the chat, we have some listener reviews.
Oh yeah, let me pull them up.
Yeah, who wants
Scrolly,
to read?
scrolly, scroll.
Who wants to read those?
I can.
Let me find a short one.
And
I'll
you-
read the first one.
And guys, we're reading these reviews. We read all the 5-star reviews we get on Apple Podcast or Facebook or wherever you listen. So
and I read
just-
the 1 stars and cry about it. Not that there is
we
any.
read the 1 stars to ourselves. Actually, there are no 1 stars.
There are no 1 stars.
Yeah,
I was
there's
just
no 1
joking.
stars. We did get a 3-star that said, "I love your content. You're great, but you front load your shit too much with just innocuous talk." So
So now the
like-
reviews are in the middle.
now the reviews are in the middle.
People like our banter.
They like the banter. All right.
Okay.
Ma Brown 1894 says, "Best Trek cast since the beginning of Discovery, aka the return of Star Trek. I've been on the search for a worthwhile, intelligent discourse on the excellent new shows of this Legends franchise. After weeks of searching for new, old, and intelligent podcasts, I've come across 2 that had more to offer than mundane, shallow fanboying/fangirling that lacked depth. Throw in shade. I found 2 that I eventually got hooked on: Woman at Warp, which is an excellent show, and this one. While Woman at Warp discusses 80s and 90s shows, this is the only one that I regularly listen every episode as soon as one drops. More so, it's also the first podcast I've ever subscribed through on Patreon. Thank you for being a patron.
Awesome.
For bonus eps. At times, the boys on the cast can get a bit excited over their own opinions and become a bit petty and snarky.
This is true.
But overall, it's clear that they have deep knowledge of Trek, are intelligent, and are caring about the subject matter. Highly recommend. 5 stars.
We look-
Yay!
We're so intelligent, guys.
Runs hand through wig.
highbrow.
Super highbrow.
Okay,
With
one
our
more
Party
review.
City wig.
$9.99 at Party City, baby.
All right, I'll do this one. Joan006 says, "I've been searching for a good Star Trek disc podcast that actually talked about an episode and didn't go off track. Also love your bantering while not coming across as trying out cliche each other as most of the rest do. I don't know your names yet, but thank you to the girl on here."
Oh, that's me.
Thank you, girl.
Her name is actually Girl.
Yeah,
That's just my whole name.
Girl McGirl.
We've nicknamed her Mariah,
Yeah.
just in case you don't know.
Just so you can tell the difference.
Yeah. You bring more emotional aspects of characters, whereas the guys are more technical, if this makes sense. The F-bombs don't really get it for me, but what the heck? I'm an old school Southern grandma who was brought up not to swear in mixed company. Anyways, keep it up for everyone. Y'all stand out amongst the others. 5 stars.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joan.
High fives.
Mike's
high
the
fives
one
all
with a
around.
filthy mouth.
Listen,
here.
Yeah.
I just want to say,
is me.
Mariah has some of the best technical knowledge about some of the stuff that goes on in the Trek universe.
Of course.
So I just want to say that
Oh,
it's
thank
not
you.
just the guys. I mean,
And who talks about emotion a lot on this show?
probably maybe me.
Both of us do.
Emotional corner in the
Yeah.
back.
Let's jump to
The
some.
ones in the
It's
wings.
more of
Yeah.
your emotions when you guys are butthurt about something.
I do get butthurt a
so
lot.
emotional,
I do
baby.
have-
Let's jump
I
to
do have
our
feels.
live questions.
Questions.
Do we have any?
So if you guys are on the feed,
Live
make sure you
stream.
put pod before any questions that you
Capital
have.
P, capital O.
I want to
capital
mention
D.
one. Angela Hopkins said Mike looks hot as 7 of 9. I would
Aw.
say AKA Daenerys as well.
You can find 7 of 9's new Grinder account later on the show.
Oh,
Link
yeah.
in the show notes.
Sardonyx J Spinal says VUP is a beta Inari.
Oh, it does have a name.
Well, if you're still listening, how did you find that out? Did you?
No, they said it during the episode.
Did they?
Oh.
Yeah, I remember a couple times they said Beta Anari.
Okay.
All
I wrote
right.
it down in my notes.
Because the first time they mention him, they just call him like a sentient reptilian.
Ah.
Yeah.
Beta
I-
Anari.
Yeah, I think they said Beta Anari and then described him as a sentient reptilian. But it was
Oh,
like
okay.
real quick.
I stand corrected.
Mr. Vep.
Well, and Karen Lynn K3 says, "Sorry, Clyde. I think Mike is the most emotional." I'm not bothered by that. It's okay, buddy.
Why are you crying then? Why are you crying right now?
Just streams of tears.
I don't care. It's not a thing. Chris Curry says, I think that Picard will be re-assimilated.
Ooh.
I think he's going to get brought
Ooh.
back. Just right behind you.
Locutus?
Clyde.
Cutest.
You got mini baby Locutus there. It's funny
Oh,
because you
there
have
he
it
is.
between two dolls that are much taller. He looks
Yeah.
like a little baby. Locutus.
Wow, that would
That would
be
be
kind of
awesome.
cool.
Do you think that could be his end? He just
Yeah,
gets
that
he
would
gets
be-
re-assimilated, and that's the end of his story.
That would be
mean,
so sad.
If it's also if it also means the end of the Borg and it like saves humanity,
I guess. yeah.
maybe, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Chris Rogers says, "Did y'all feel weird about Rafi being made to have a substance abuse problem and estranged from her family as a black woman?"
That is definitely something I thought about. Is like, oh, of course, this is the character that has all of these problems.
Mhm.
But
Who else? I mean, I agreed. That's
I mean,
something that-
Rios could also have these issues. His cigar smoking self.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, who else could it have been?
I mean,
Right.
Allison Pill's character might have been a really way more interesting to me if she had a
Yeah.
substance abuse problem.
It would make a lot more sense if she
Right?
had a substance abuse problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mixed
don't
feelings
know.
for sure.
Yeah, mixed feelings. I would say my offense meter is probably about like a 3 right now. Looking to say, okay, let's not take this too far.
I'm hoping she's going to get the full redemption story that I want,
Yes.
and it's not too tropey within the redemption story. I think I hope there's elements of whatever's happened to her that she realizes she's done wrong, but some of her theories prove that she's correct, and maybe her family will find some way of forgiveness there. But
We might also see a twist where her theories are true, but she has to decide whether or not to follow that through or to be there for her family.
True.
And she might just do the family thing. That would be an interesting twist as well.
Chris Rogers says, immediately after Picard's time as Locutus, he fucked off to the vineyard. Sorry, to the grandmother.
to Joan. Sorry, Joan.
Until his brother kicked his ass to go back to space.
Mhm.
And now he doesn't have anyone there to put a check on him. So
Where's
that's
Brother
kind of an
Picard?
interesting idea. Like he
Brother died
was
in a fire.
traumatized
Oh.
previously, and he retreated. And once he kind of felt a little bit of a failure in his quest for something truly in the name of humanity, that he just once again like retreated.
Yeah, well, his brother had another French name. I remember him now. He was
Jacques.
He was older. He looked, I mean,
Jacques
even
Picard.
older than Picard.
Yeah, he was his older brother.
Yeah, I wonder where kind of like they have no like kids or anything.
No
What's
other
with-
family.
Well,
What's up
they-
with these Picards?
The brother did have a son, but
Mhm.
they died in a fire.
Is that true?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Tragedy.
There was a
Oh.
fire at the chateau.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Dang.
Chris Rogers also says Girardi is 100% a synthetic, the same way Data's mom, quote unquote, was. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, there was an episode with Data's mother who was modeled on a real person who was a synthetic, and it was very much a Soji type synthetic where you couldn't tell, and with Data you could tell. So
Yeah.
I think they're just
interesting.
kind of ignoring that. Here.
Ignoring the mom.
Yeah.
Steph Hicks says, Pod, is there any parental stereotype that hasn't happened yet? If so, what character would embody it? Parental stereotypes. There's the deadbeat dad. There's the
Overbearing mom.
overbearing, the tiger mom kind of thing. The
Helicopter.
helicopter parent.
Yes.
One of those.
That one.
Mr. Mom. Is there the dad figure who's caring after their kid on their own? One of those kind of
I
things.
mean, I think all of the captains in some way, shape, or form sort of
Yes.
fit into these tropes. Like Janeway is sort of that like helicoptery parent in some episodes, and in other times is the I don't know. I'm not a parent. I don't know what other tropes there are.
Yeah.
I think you've got a lot of the substitute parent, right?
Right.
Like a lot of the you were abandoned or not cared for or neglected, but I'm going to be here to be the dad you never had.
We talked a lot last week about the whole daddy issues that were going on with
Picard and
Elric
Elroy,
or
yeah.
Elron or whatever the fuck his name is, and Picard. And then I thought once again we saw this week with the brief interaction that was going on between Picard and Seven of Nine, he was basically like kind of chastising her, being like, "Oh, I think there's honor in what you do, but at the same time you're operating outside of the law. You're a vigilante, and I really think you could do better than that." And it felt like some kind of dad moment where she was like, "Dude, fuck off. I think that you kind of abandoned the fight." And once again, he gets dragged for that.
He did.
It was that
Big time.
conversation of like your parents being like, "We're not mad, we're disappointed."
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you even really know her? Like
Right.
to say that?
I really wanted her to just go, "You are not my captain."
Yes.
Mm. But
Yeah,
then
what
at
the
the
fuck
end,
are you?
he shows her respect and he gives her guns to murder people.
I thought he totally did, not knowing what was going down.
Do you think he knew?
No,
I think you
no,
don't think he
no,
knew?
No, I think the thematic point was the idea that he doesn't know, and that she wants to make it so he doesn't know because she likes the idea that there is still, even if it's an older generation, there's a generation
He's
of people out
optimistic
there
and idyllic.
who have those optimistic
There
and
was
and idealistic points of view that can be shared throughout the galaxy.
Yeah. There was a moment where Rios
Yeah.
dropped something. Sorry. I was like, yes.
Yeah, but no.
Yeah, but no, I agree with you. Didn't want to forget this thing. So there was a moment where like Rios put something on the desk and then she grabbed it.
It was the transporter amplifier, right?
Yeah.
The signal amplifier.
So that
he
she
put
could-
it down, like on the top of the transporter machine, which I was thinking, that's an appropriate place to put this thing. And then she just kind of picked it up, like nobody's paying attention, and it's now gone forever.
I felt like he was leaving it for her because he was all like, "I get your want for bloodlust."
Hmm.
Wow, that is weird. I wonder if
I think he
He
was
could
like,
have
was,
just
like,
kept
totally,
it in
like,
his
hooking her
pocket.
I think he was like, "I know you're gonna go. I'm just gonna leave this here."
no,
Yeah.
no, though the whole thing though with the last episode was like you don't kill people. He's like Batman. He's like I have a no kill policy.
No,
Right.
Rios knew.
Oh, Rios.
Yeah,
not
did.
Picard,
Oh, I thought you were saying
Rios.
Picard did it.
No, 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 no.
Rios.
Yeah.
Oh,
Rios is my boy.
Yeah, of
He's
course.
like-
yeah.
He's like,
I
go
like that.
fuck up some shit.
Well,
Yeah.
Rios was telegraphing that totally. He's like, you can come back and kill her later. Just come on, let's go.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what he was saying.
Do it later after this old stodgy dude is.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let's clear up a couple things that the chat has helped us with. Yes, Picard's brother's name was Robert,
Robert.
Robert.
and his nephew's name was Renee.
Renee, they
So
died
those
in a
were-
fire.
Yes, so those were
Robert and Rene.
So there's also the scene. I don't know. Did we already address the Girardi watching the video of her and Maddox when he's making chocolate chips? And he's
Mhm.
like using all the synthetic products, but he's like talking about the idea that like sometimes you can combine these to make something magical that is more real than the synthetic products that they are. or
I like
whatever.
her idea of baking was like, you're just gonna set it on fire.
But when I was watching the video, part of me in watching that seemed like it felt like she was operating almost as like a bewildered newborn in a way. Like, oh, I'm
Oh.
so unfamiliar with what you're doing, and this is such a concept that doesn't make sense to me. Even though if she's had a relationship with him and been his understudy, what he's doing there should not have been a surprise to her at any point at this point, I would think. Which made me think, is she a synthetic?
She's a synth.
Did
Yeah.
he make a sex robot? What's
Yes.
going on here?
Yes.
I mean, the answer is yes.
Yeah, I
because
mean
that's
it's
exactly
it's
what he
played
did.
out like they're different generations, but she could definitely be a synthetic sex robot. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've made the most leaps and bounds in robotics currently in this current day and age
Yes.
for porn. So
I realized if
This
I
is true.
had shorter hair and took this eye booger off, I could be cosplaying Girardi.
Oh, yeah.
Don't
You
say
could.
that right after this whole conversation.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What are the ethics there if she ends up being a synthetic?
I mean, she can, if she is fully capable to make decisions about her life, she can make decisions about who
Well,
she sleeps with.
That's such
how
grooming
is-
on another weird level to
What-
me.
I mean,
but
yes.
how is that any different from what Narek is doing with Soji?
Also, they're both fuckboys.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, or what Daj was doing with her boyfriend. I mean, they've created these synths that are biological and basically none of them even know that they're synths. So
Yeah.
Girardi's the same way. I think what we saw in that home video to her was this loving moment between her and possibly her lover, but was basically the early vlog of
Mhm.
this newborn synth life.
Yeah, and I mean, I think even back in like First Contact, there is that moment between Data and the Borg Queen where she's just like, "Are you able to like have sex?" essentially, and he's like, "I technically have all of the parts, yes,"
I'm
and they
fully
all work.
functional,
Yeah.
Carolyn K3 said the idea that you can get replicated ingredients and create a more authentic result, the cookie, is definitely about the twins and synths.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed.
Metaphors.
Right. They're perfect in their imperfection, I think is what they also said.
I love that.
He said, he also did a little bit of a data dump on us right before he died.
Oh
on
yeah,
his-
here's
on his
all of the
deathbed.
information you need to know.
I hope if I
I'm
give you
dying
all of
now.
this information, you don't also kill me. Sure enough, dead.
But a lot of it was stuff we already kind of assumed, right?
Well, I thought what was interesting is that he reaffirmed that it's more than just the Vosh synth or whatever they're called.
Vosh.
Vosh. The
The Federation
It's
is
also
involved.
the Federation.
Well,
yeah.
we kind of knew that.
We kind of did, but like to have it just kind of solidified and like, okay, this is a much grander and more vast conspiracy. There might be something even more insidious at play, and the reason that Starfleet has receded from certain areas of the galaxy and are no longer acting as a kind of protective and regulating force.
Well, I think to Mariah's point earlier, we're halfway through the season, right? So I think we had to move this along a little bit, and this is the vehicle in which to do it. We all knew these things, but Picard and his team did not, right? Like, it's like, oh, the artifact. It also kind of showed us that he already knows about this Borg cube,
Right.
which I don't think we knew kind of going into this. Like, oh, he's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Now we know where to go and find them. And so I think that was just, it was a plot device to move us along. And I kind of, because I was like, yeah, I was thinking, okay, well, the minute he started talking, I was like, oh, this dude is dead.
Yeah.
for
Somehow.
sure. Yeah.
But I was like, but they're moving us along. We only have a few more episodes, so let's go with that.
Validation, she's evil.
Yep.
She is
I've
evil.
been saying this from day
Maybe
one.
not the mastermind, but evil.
No, she's being played, but she's evil.
We also got some people saying like they agree with the whole idea that Rios was totally hooking up 7 of 9 with a little pod card, whatever
Oh,
thing
yeah.
to go fuck up some shit. And I thought one of the more adorable moments of this episode was when he figured out who she was and he started guessing the numbers for her. He's like, oh, like 99 or
Didn't he call her
11?
11?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally he's like, oh wait, yeah, 7 of 9. Either way,
Yeah.
it's super cool.
Yeah.
That's her. The person
I
we heard
love the
about?
fact that he called her. He said 7 of 9, the ex-Borg, Fenris Ranger. I was like, that's a hell of a title.
Yeah.
That is a hell of a
dope.
title.
It all fit on that nice little business card she gave Picard at the very end,
That's right. Yeah. Here,
which I'm just assuming is the ability to be able to call her.
yeah,
Yeah.
tweet at me. I think it's time for us to beam on out of here, unless we have more to say about this episode.
No, it was fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We got to dress ridiculously to talk about it.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to whatever they're going to dress like next episode.
Well, I'll see what our Freecloud pop-ups are next time.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining live. Thank you, audio listeners, for listening to the pod. Just a reminder, you can watch the show live on YouTube every Thursday after Picard at 9 p.m. Central. Please visit StarTrekPod.co to subscribe to the podcast, to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have an extensive back catalog covering every episode of Star Trek Discovery, so check that out. Also, please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Star Trek Pod, where we post Star Trek memes and all that good shit. Join us on Patreon. Grant, what do we have on Patreon?
Over at patreon.com/StarTrekPod, you can join us on our Slack chat. Pay $2 an episode. That's $8 a month at max, because I think we only do 4 episodes
A month?
a month, yeah.
Yeah.
So do that. That's a great deal. You get to join us on the chat, and we're going to do... Oh, we're getting close to that hour. We're going to do a Patreon video, and I don't know how I'm feeling about it, but I really think you guys should join Patreon and check it out.
Oh, we did have a goal of, by this point, if we reached 100 patrons, Grant would shave his head. We didn't meet that goal, but we did get somewhat close.
We did get somewhat close.
And we got enough.
We got people that followed us, and
we got enough to where Grant thinks he should do something.
we're gonna try and do right by you. That's all.
Mohawk.
We'll see.
Anyway, patreon.com/StarTrekPod. Is it hot in here?
Something's going to happen to
It's all
Grant's
that
head.
pimp
Oh, no.
outfit.
All right, Grant, where can we follow you and your work online?
At Baron Von Grant. You can just follow me on Twitter. I think I have links to everything else. I'm also Baron Von Grant on Instagram. Yeah, check me out.
Mariah.
I'm at Mariah Gossett on all platforms. That's Mariah with a Y and Gossett with 2 S's and 2 T's.
Clyde.
I am at Clyde Haynes on Twitter, and you can find me at keyandclyde.com. That's KEI and Clyde.com.
Find me on Twitter at Mike Moody. That's MikeEmoody. Anthony Rapp.
Ooh.
Shots fired.
Until
Whoa.
next week, live long and prosper.
Bye.
Bye.
Sometimes you just have to bow to the absurd.